Hello, thank you for watching this video. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be coloring in a stamped image using Polychromos color pencils. Shout out to artists and craftsmen in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They're awesome, and that's where I got these Polychromos open stock. Now today I'm going to be using paper from this pad that I got at Big Lots. And it's $5 for 80 sheets of acid-free 100-pound paper. This paper did yellow a little bit because I've had it for a couple years now, but overall it's still a good paper. I just really love how porous it is. So the image is going to be from the Dear Lizzie stamp set. This is just a set of 10 acrylic stamps that I picked up at Marshall's, I believe it was. Okay, so I'm going to use Archival, mostly just because I love Ranger's Archival, and I'm going to use the stamp. Yes, the mount is just a piece of plexiglass. I bought it, it was $2.99 at Lowe's, and they cut it for you, so it's awesome. I got them to cut it, I think it was like 5 pieces or so, but going from the smallest, which is just the right size for this little girl, to one that's half the size of a sheet of paper, because that was how big the original plexiglass sheet was. Let me ink up the stamp. And I'm not using anything underneath to sort of make it gush. So I'm just gonna make sure that I'm stamping it really well. And since this is a brand new acrylic stamp, I have not sanded it like some people recommend you do with new acrylic stamps. We'll see how this goes. Okay, I think there was a little bit of lift as I was doing that. Because this is a rather thin acrylic plexiglass mount, there is a slight bit of flexibility, which does help me get these details in the middle. And of course the shoes that weren't quite taking ink. So leave it for a second and let's hope for the best. Alright, that's really good actually. And surprise, surprise, this acrylic stamp is pretty darn clean. Okay, and just to show you completely clean, now I know this might not be a popular opinion, but I love acrylic stamps. I know they're lesser quality, but look at these photopolymer stamps with archival ink. No matter how much I scrub them, no matter how much I try to clean them, because I don't want to use alcohol, so they don't come out clean. Whereas acrylic stamps, brand new looking. Okay, so let's get to coloring. And yes, I'm going very, very fast here. You might want to take a little more time if you're doing this. Or not, hey, if you don't need to take longer, why take more time, right? I am blending just like with Copics, I am blending the darker shade with the light shade. I found that even with color pencils or just normal graphite pencils, it does make it sort of look better. And because this is hand colored, it doesn't have to be perfect. The fact that it's hand colored pretty much implies that if it's perfect, you might be lying. But seriously, no one expects perfection if you give them a handmade something or other. Okay, now for her dress, I think I'm gonna go with purple. This is magenta. So I'm sort of a little bit blending the skin color with the dress tone because I don't want a distinct line, and I am making this dress long sleeved. I don't know, I just didn't feel like she should have that much skin showing. But up to you. And just carrying on the purple where I think this dress is. And I'm not exactly being all that careful with it. So for this middle, I'm actually just dragging out a few short marks, sort of to make it look as though her dress really is more creased in the middle, or sort of a little more volume. Okay, for her legs, I'm gonna go back to flesh tone. And I know lace is usually white, but I love a nice little pink on a little girl, so I'm actually gonna go in with a, let's see, you know what, I'm gonna go in with a light purple. This is light purple pink. Oh, there we go. And I'm gonna do her socks and the lace in this pink tone. I just love pink, and I mean, hey, she's a girly girl. She's wearing purple, holding flowers, little ribbon in her hair, and I'm gonna make this ribbon pink as well because I think that's an adorable color. I am going over the black because you'll notice the polychromos, while they are an oil-based pencil and thus more translucent than perhaps, you know, Prismacolors, they are nevertheless opaque enough that they will show up a little bit when you do something like that. Now I was thinking for the bottom of this dress, maybe doing some sort of shading or something. But now that I think about it, I was gonna do pink, but I think I'll just leave it a lighter purple. So I'm gonna go in actually with my what I used before, which was a, you know, pinkish purple, but I don't know, I just love the mix of these two colors. I think they're awesome. And just a heads up, while Prismas do have some fugitive or, you know, not very light fast colors, the polychromos colors are all pretty light fast. I think the least they are is something like 5 years or something, which is decent. I do not believe they have any that are the lowest standard, lowest category, and because even 1 stars might be something like 5 or 10 years. Let me see. Just overall, they're pretty good. Okay, so for hair, I think I'm gonna mix a few different colors for hair. First, I'm gonna go over the highlight areas with, I think I'll go in with this brown ochre, just to do the highlights. And yes, this is how I do my highlights, you know, whichever way you do yours. Because the pencil resists a little bit, because the paper is already flattened where you've already gone over it, I like to put my darker colors in last and just continually go over the lighter colors. And I know this color is not exactly the best match with this, which was brown ochre. This color I'm using now is burnt ochre, so it's a little bit more red toned brown, and I'm now going to go over with my darkest color, burnt sienna. Because I bought these open stock, I did not have that many browns. I didn't want to get too many browns. I prefer to get more colors. And you know what? It's working out for me because, seriously, in my opinion, you only really need 1 or 2 different sort of types of hair mixes, if you know what I mean. Like, maybe one that's a dark brown, maybe a lighter brown, blonde if you feel like that. Well, my hair's black, so I tend to color brunettes just because, I mean, I don't know. But have you ever tried shading with like grays and blue blacks and dark browns to sort of try to get some depth into black hair? It doesn't quite work. So dark brown is good enough. But I mean, obviously, if you're redhead or blonde, you're gonna want colors that match your hair, if that's what you want to do. Now, I think this went a little too dark. So, in the middle, I mean. So I'm just gonna put more color in the edges and in the middle of these waves. There we go. And of course the shading where the locks meet and where they're overlapping. And then I'm gonna go back to my lightest color, the brown ochre, and just sort of go over it. I do use the lightest color to burnish typically, but of course you can use the actual burnisher or blender pencil to burnish. I just found that, it's just personal preference, especially for darker colors. When I first started out, I actually used a white pencil to burnish and blend, so I found that when you're doing a darker color using a white pencil, wasn't the best results, so I just used the lightest color. And I have to admit, this paper is not the best quality, so it might rip with too many layers, especially since this is an oil-based pencil, which is stiffer, more firm than a wax-based pencil. A wax-based pencil will just glide on and just sort of, a wax-based pencil will just sort of glide on and put more layers of wax on it, whereas an oil-based pencil, it's actually gonna sort of try to permeate the paper more. And of course, you can do less layering with oil-based pencils, though you can put wax-based pencils on top of oil-based pencils. And I'm just putting in a little bit of depth here with this pencil, which is a dark sepia. So we use the sienna, the ochres, and now a dark sepia because, what can I say? I felt like there needed to be a little bit more depth. Okay. And now for let's see. And now for the flowers. This is dark flesh. So it is the color I used for the cheeks, I believe, but I'm using it for the flower because it's a pretty pink, and I like pink, so that's not enough contrast. I'm actually gonna go in and take out my reds. Now one red is Scarlet Lake and one is like Pale Geranium Lake. I unfortunately do not have a darker red because this was open stock, and I just, what can I say? Sometimes when I pick colors, it's I just typically don't use the red that much in the Prismas, which I already had. So when I was choosing, I chose more browns and golden browns and more greens because I just use a lot of greens. So yeah. So that's why my pinks and reds aren't the most plentiful. Now, going back to, see, this is the Pale Geranium Lake. Yep. And this is Scarlet Lake. Don't they look so similar? Well, the Scarlet Lake is just slightly more orange. Basically, if you're gonna buy open stock polychromos, just get like one or the other. I'd recommend the Pale Geranium Lake. I know it says pale, but it's not pale at all if you look at this. It is a slightly light red color, but then you could get a dark red. And for example, this one is actually called dark red. Of course, it's more purple than red, I'd say, but I mean, it's a little bit more maroon than a actual dark red. But it's a nice color, and I mean, what can I say? It's a nice color. I'm just putting some stuff in the center of these little flowers. Just a hint of color. And say why not? Some yellow for the little dots. You don't have to do this. It doesn't really show up that much anyway, but I like the thought of just having a little bit of sunshine in there. And now for greens. Because this is a stamped image, we're not going for realism here. Not really. So permanent green and dark phthalo green. So they're very bright greens. I mean, normally if you're doing a realistic drawing, you wouldn't be using bright greens. But because this is a stamped image, I'm just using some very bright greens. And trying to do a little bit of shading, not a lot. So ultimately, I think this will be a centerpiece for a card or something for me. I mean, coloring is very therapeutic, I found, but at the same time, there's not much to be done after you finish coloring. So I've taken up card making, and I'm hoping that, well, I mean, what can I say? Card making is quite relaxing as well. So I'm just sort of blending out the line, and let's see. I'm not quite happy with the middle, the very middle. I think the colors are not quite contrasting as well. So, and that just made it worse. But yeah, so experiment and see what colors work for you. Maybe you have different colors, or maybe you want to break out Prismas or another brand that'll go right over that. So I think for me, I'm gonna just leave it as that. Maybe put in a little bit dark red into the other two to darken them a little. But overall, I think our flowers will just have to be less than fully vivid. But that's okay, because her dress is really vivid. And her dress is so nice and pretty. And I don't know, I just love this purple. And that pink color too. They're just awesome colors, and I love them. And of course the light flesh color. To be honest, I think this is one of the best flesh colors like ever. Because the Prisma flash tone is a little bit polychromos. I love how light it is and just buildable, you know? And you can see the colors just building up in layers, and I love that. But of course, as they're oil based, they do glide easier, and overall I find that they're a little easier to work with because you don't have to sharpen them every 5 seconds and lose half your pencil sharpening. If you have the older Prismacolors, of course you don't run into that as much, but I have one of the newer sets, so yep, lost a lot of pencil sharpening that way. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching me chat and color this for the last 10 minutes. So have a great weekend and stay warm.